After months of mourning the sudden death of her husband, Laura found herself lost in a sea of paperwork and legal formalities. The void left by him seemed to swallow everything around her, turning her once cozy home into a cold, desolate space. The walls of the house, which had once echoed with laughter and conversation, now stood as silent witnesses to her sorrow. Old photos and memories of happier times were all that remained to comfort her, but even they seemed inadequate against the vastness of her grief. The only light amid the shadows was her secret lover, Gabriel, who supported her tirelessly. He was always by her side, holding her hand through the toughest moments and offering a shoulder to lean on during sleepless nights. Gabriel was a refuge of affection and understanding, a safe harbor in the storm that Laura's life had become. His constant presence gave her the strength to face each day, and the love they shared was a glimmer of hope in her wounded heart. At the notary's office, surrounded by serious lawyers and old furniture that exuded the scent of aged wood, Laura and Gabriel waited anxiously. The leather chairs creaked under the weight of tense bodies, and the silence of the room was punctuated only by the ticking of the large wall clock. The heavy atmosphere matched the gravity of the moment, and Laura couldn't help but feel a knot in her stomach as she waited. The will was to be read that day, finally revealing the fate of the vast fortune left by Laura's late husband. The yellowed pages of the document rested on the notary's desk, containing words that could change everything. Laura knew that this moment would mark a turning point in her life, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead made her anxious. Gabriel, by her side, gently squeezed her hand, trying to convey confidence and calm. The lawyers, with their impeccable suits and solemn expressions, murmured among themselves as they organized the papers. Laura watched every movement, every gesture, trying to find any hint of what was about to be revealed. Her heart raced, and she wondered how this reading would impact her future. Her husband's fortune was considerable, and the implications of that inheritance could be profound. Gabriel, ever attentive, noticed Laura's unease and leaned in to whisper words of encouragement in her ear. He knew how much this moment meant to her and was determined to offer all the support she needed. The love he felt for Laura was sincere and deep, and he wanted to be present for every step of this new chapter in her life. The lawyer began the solemn reading of the will, his voice echoing in the tense silence of the room. The soft afternoon light filtered through the tall windows, casting elongated shadows over the antique furniture and creating an even more austere atmosphere. The hands of the wall clock seemed to move slower, as if time had slowed down in respect to the gravity of the moment. Laura felt a tightness in her chest as she heard the first words of her husband's will. Her heart pounded, and she could hear the pulsating in her ears, muffling the sounds around her. The room, with its dark wooden walls and shelves filled with legal books, seemed to shrink as the lawyer continued with the reading. I, Eduardo Santos, being of sound mind, declare this document to be my last will and testament, the lawyer recited, his voice firm and clear, but with a tone of seriousness that heightened the tension. Laura looked at Gabriel, who was beside her, seeking support and strength in his presence. He squeezed her hand gently, a silent gesture of encouragement. Each word seemed to hang in the air, laden with meaning and emotion. The lawyer continued, I thank my friends and family for their support and love over the years. To my employees, I leave my sincerest gratitude and recognition for their dedication and loyalty. A tear rolled down Laura's cheek as she remembered the happy moments she shared with Eduardo. The memories came in a whirlwind. The laughter, the trips, the shared dreams. All of it now seemed distant and unreal, a life she could hardly believe she had lived. Finally, the lawyer reached the crucial part of the document. Laura held her breath, her heart nearly stopping from the nervousness. I declare that I leave all my possessions and fortune to. The pause before the revelation was almost unbearable. The lawyer lifted his eyes from the paper, as if giving Laura a moment to prepare. Each second seemed to drag on as the lawyer took a deep breath, preparing to utter the words that would change the course of Laura's life forever. She could feel the eyes of the other lawyers around her, curious and attentive, awaiting the revelation with the same interest. Gabriel continued to hold her hand, conveying a silent calm but also visibly tense, knowing the importance of this moment. Laura closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm her mind and brace herself for what was to come. She knew that what was said next would shape her future in ways she could not yet comprehend. The lawyer, resuming the reading, finally broke the dense silence. I declare that I leave all my possessions and fortune to. Laura opened her eyes, her heart racing, ready to hear the words that would seal the fate of Eduardo's inheritance. A surprised murmur spread through the room when another woman's name, not Laura's, was mentioned as the primary beneficiary of the fortune. The whispers grew louder, filling the atmosphere with shock and disbelief. Laura, sitting rigidly in her chair, felt the ground open up beneath her feet. Her face turned pale, as if all the blood had been drained from her body in an instant. The revelation hit her like a blow, leaving her breathless and speechless. Gabriel, beside her, immediately noticed the change in Laura. He held her tightly, his wide eyes reflecting the perplexity and confusion he also felt. Gabriel's expression was a mix of surprise and concern, his gaze darting quickly between the lawyer and Laura, trying to comprehend what had just happened. The lawyer, oblivious to the turmoil his words had caused, continued the reading with the same solemn and unperturbed voice. But for Laura, his words now sounded distant and irrelevant. The room, with its walls lined with documents and bookshelves, seemed to spin around her. She tried to process what she had heard, but the truth was too harsh to absorb immediately. Who's this woman? Laura's mind screamed in silence. The implied betrayal in the reading of the will tore at her heart, leaving a void she didn't know how to fill. Her eyes sought Gabriel, who wrapped her in a protective embrace, trying to convey a sense of security he didn't feel himself. The other people in the room, lawyers and witnesses, exchanged glances and whispers, all equally stunned by the unexpected twist. The antique furniture, which had previously seemed like inert pieces in the setting, now appeared as silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. The clock on the wall continued its relentless ticking, indifferent to Laura's emotional turmoil. Laura gripped Gabriel's hand tightly, as if it could anchor her to reality. She needed answers, needed to understand how and why her husband had left everything to another person. The room, once a space of formality and legal routine, was now the epicenter of a personal storm that Laura could never have anticipated. Laura's breathing was ragged, and she felt a wave of nausea rising in her throat. Gabriel, noticing her condition, whispered words of comfort, though his voice was also trembling. He knew they needed to get out of there, to find a place where they could process everything without the curious and judging eyes of those present. Every second seemed to drag on, and Laura felt as if she were trapped in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake. The name of the other woman echoed in her mind, each repetition a stab to her soul. She looked at the lawyer, her vision blurred by the tears that were beginning to form. The pain of betrayal was intense, and Laura knew that nothing would ever be the same from that moment on. Laura felt betrayed and outraged. How could her husband have hidden this from her? She wondered if everything they had lived through was a lie. "Eduardo, how could you?" she whispered, almost inaudibly, as tears streamed freely down her face. Her thoughts were in turmoil, churning over every memory, every moment they had shared. The love, the trust, everything now seemed shrouded in a mist of doubt and suspicion. "This can't be true," Laura murmured, her voice trembling and full of pain. She looked at Gabriel, seeking answers he didn't have. "He couldn't do this to me, Gabriel. Not after everything we've been through." Gabriel, his brow furrowed and a worried expression on his face, glanced around the room, his eyes briefly resting on the lawyer before returning to Laura. "Laura, calm down," he said gently, trying to keep his composure. "Something is very wrong here. I knew Eduardo. He loved you. This doesn't make sense." "Then why?" Laura asked, her voice laden with despair. "Why would he leave everything to another woman?" "Who is she, Gabriel?" "Why did he never tell me anything?" Gabriel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Laura, but we will find out. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe it's a mistake." "A mistake?" Laura repeated, incredulous. How could something like this be a mistake? It's his will. He signed it. He knew what he was doing. Yes, but what if he was manipulated? What if someone convinced him to do this? Gabriel suggested, his mind racing with possibilities. "There has to be a reason. We need to investigate." Laura looked at him, hope beginning to flicker in her eyes. "Do you think that's possible? Do you think someone could have done this?" "I don't know," Gabriel admitted, "but I promise I won't rest until I find out the truth. We will get to the bottom of this, Laura. Together." Laura nodded slowly, trying to absorb Gabriel's words. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what I would do without you." "You'll never be alone, Laura," Gabriel replied firmly. "We will find answers. And if there's something dirty going on, we will expose it." As they spoke, the lawyer continued reading the will, oblivious to the emotional storm his words had unleashed. Laura and Gabriel knew they had a difficult road ahead, but they were determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. Determined to uncover the truth, Laura and Gabriel embarked on a personal investigation. They knew the journey would not be easy, but the need for answers was stronger than any obstacle. Each day brought a new clue, a new fragment of information that they hoped to piece together like a puzzle. Laura and Gabriel began by revisiting important places from Laura and Eduardo's past. Their first stop was the house where Laura and Eduardo had lived for many years, now empty and full of memories. Each room seemed to hold secrets, and Laura hoped to find something, anything, that could shed light on the situation. "He always kept important documents in the office," Laura said, leading Gabriel to a small, cozy room filled with books and papers. "Let's start here." Gabriel opened drawers and rummaged through files, while Laura carefully examined the shelves. After hours of searching, they found a diary hidden behind a row of books. "Look at this," Gabriel said, handing the diary to Laura. "There might be something useful here." With trembling hands, Laura opened the diary and began to read. The pages revealed Eduardo's intimate thoughts, and as she read, tears streamed down her face. He was worried about something, Laura said. But he never mentioned anything to me. Their investigation led them to interview people close to Eduardo. First, they visited old friends and colleagues. Eduardo was a good man, said an old friend. But in recent months, he seemed distracted, worried about something he never wanted to share. Each conversation added a new piece to the puzzle. They talked to neighbors who remembered frequent visits from a mysterious woman. She came here almost every week, said a neighbor. We never knew who she was, but Eduardo always seemed tense after those visits. Laura and Gabriel then met with Eduardo's former business partners. One of them, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, revealed more than they expected. Eduardo mentioned being under pressure, he said hesitantly. He was being blackmailed, but he never said by whom. They uncovered hidden secrets that cast doubt on Eduardo's integrity. Gabriel managed to trace financial records showing suspicious transfers of large sums of money. This gets stranger by the day, Gabriel said, showing the documents to Laura. He was transferring money to an unknown account. The last clue led Laura and Gabriel to a small house on the outskirts of town, where they found the woman mentioned in the will. She seemed surprised to see them. I didn't know Eduardo had a wife, she said, clearly uncomfortable. He told me he was a widower. The woman, reluctant at first, began to reveal crucial information. Eduardo was trying to protect you, she said. He was involved in something dangerous and didn't want you to get caught in the crossfire. With each revelation, the truth about Eduardo became more complex and painful. Laura and Gabriel knew they were only beginning to understand the true extent of what was happening, but they were more determined than ever to uncover the whole truth, no matter the cost. In the midst of their journey, Laura and Gabriel found unlikely allies willing to help them. Each new ally brought with them a piece of the puzzle, making the search for the truth even more intricate and revealing. Among the first to join their cause were some lawyers who had worked with Eduardo. Initially reluctant to get involved, they were eventually moved by Laura's situation and decided to offer their legal expertise to unravel the mysteries of the will. There's something very strange here, said one of the lawyers, a middle-aged man with a stern look. Documents like these aren't usually altered without a good reason. Let's dig deeper. With the lawyer's help, Laura and Gabriel gained access to files and records that would have otherwise been out of their reach. Sifting through these documents, they found notes and handwritten annotations by Eduardo, suggesting he was being pressured by external forces. Look at this, Gabriel said, pointing to a specific annotation. He mentions a name. Marcos. Who could this be? Determined to follow this new lead, Gabriel hired a private detective, a worn-looking man with an impeccable reputation for solving difficult cases. The detective, Mr. Carvalho, immediately dove into the investigation, using his contacts and skills to find out more about Marcos. This name appears in several suspicious financial transactions, Carvalho reported. It seems he is a key piece in this puzzle. At the same time, old friends of Eduardo began to emerge, some bringing valuable information. One of these friends, a man named Ricardo, revealed that Eduardo had distanced himself from many of them in the last months of his life. He was different, Ricardo said thoughtfully. Always seemed worried. Looking over his shoulder. He mentioned being involved in something dangerous but never wanted to go into details. Each new ally added a layer of complexity to the investigation. One night, while reviewing the collected clues, Laura and Gabriel received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line, a female voice trembling with fear said, I know what happened to Eduardo. He was in trouble, and it involves more people than you think. Meet me tomorrow, at the Central Square, at noon. With hearts racing, Laura and Gabriel showed up for the meeting. There they found a young, nervous woman who introduced herself as Mariana, a former colleague of Eduardo. He was being threatened, she said, looking around as if expecting to be followed. Marcos and his associates pressured him to make those changes to the will. He did it to protect you, Laura. They knew something terrible and used it against him. Each revelation was a blow, but also an essential piece of the puzzle Laura and Gabriel were assembling. The web of conspiracies and secrets became increasingly clear, and with the help of these unlikely allies, they were closer than ever to uncovering the complete truth about Eduardo's life and death. Determined to dig deeper into the mysterious figure of Marcos, Laura and Gabriel enlisted Mr. Carvalho to investigate his background further. They also decided to confront Marcos directly, hoping to get answers from the man who seemed to be at the center of Eduardo's troubles. Armed with the information gathered from their allies, they prepared themselves for a confrontation that could finally reveal the whole story. As they pieced together Eduardo's notes and the testimonies of those they had spoken to, a clearer picture began to form. Eduardo had been trapped in a web of deceit and manipulation, trying to protect his loved ones while navigating dangerous waters. The sacrifices he made were now apparent, and Laura's heart ached with the realization of what he had endured. With their allies by their side and a newfound resolve, Laura and Gabriel set out to face Marcos, ready to uncover the final pieces of the puzzle and bring the truth to light, no matter the cost. With each uncovered clue, Laura delved deeper into her husband's dark past. Each new revelation was a blow, dismantling the image she had of Eduardo and replacing it with an unsettling portrait of secrets and betrayals. First, there were signs of fraudulent business dealings. Carefully hidden financial documents revealed money transfers to unknown accounts, suspicious investments, and partnerships with individuals of dubious reputation. "This can't be true," Laura whispered to Gabriel, holding a folder full of compromising records. "Eduardo was always so careful with business. He never mentioned any of this." "It's deeper than we thought," Gabriel responded, examining one of the sheets. "He was involved with dangerous people, Laura. This explains a lot." Their investigation led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, where Eduardo supposedly met with his business partners. The eerie atmosphere of the place made Laura's heart race. As they searched the site, they found more evidence of illegal activities. "Look at this," Gabriel said, holding a ledger with encrypted notes. He kept detailed records of everything. "This is incriminating." Alongside the financial secrets, reports of extramarital affairs emerged. Old text messages and emails revealed a series of romantic encounters with various women. Each new discovery was like a dagger to Laura's heart. "How could he?" she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "I trusted him. We built a life together. And he betrayed me in every possible way." Gabriel, always by her side, tried to comfort her. "Laura, we will get through this. I promise we will uncover the whole truth, no matter how painful it is." One of the most shocking moments of the investigation was the discovery of a second will, never officially registered. Hidden in a secret safe in Eduardo's old house, the document revealed completely different intentions from those mentioned in the official will. "He intended to leave everything to you," Gabriel said, reading the clauses. "This will was never finalized. What happened between the creation of this one and the other that was registered?" The discovery of the second will raised more questions than answers. Why did he change his mind? Laura wondered, perplexed. Was he pressured? Or was he afraid of something? The pieces of the puzzle were slowly coming together, but each new piece challenged everything Laura thought she knew about Eduardo. The secrets of fraudulent business dealings, personal betrayals, and the unregistered second will painted a picture of a man living a double life, full of mysteries and deceptions. Laura found herself re-evaluating every moment of her marriage, every conversation, every gesture. The reality that was emerging was dark and painful, but she knew she had to keep going. "I need to know the truth, Gabriel," she said with determination. "No matter how painful it is. I deserve to know what really happened." Determined to find out more, Laura and Gabriel continued their investigation. They revisited old friends and colleagues, hoping to uncover more details about Eduardo's hidden life. Each person they spoke to provided new insights, slowly piecing together the truth. They learned that Eduardo had been deeply involved with a criminal organization led by Marcos. This organization had used threats and blackmail to control Eduardo, forcing him to make decisions that went against his morals and values. Eduardo's fraudulent business dealings and the changes to his will were all orchestrated by Marcos and his associates, who held something over Eduardo that he couldn't escape. One night, Gabriel received a call from Mr. Carvalho, the private detective. "I found something," Carvalho said. "Marcos is planning to leave the country. We need to act fast if we want to confront him and get the answers you're looking for." With a sense of urgency, Laura and Gabriel set a plan in motion to confront Marcos. They gathered their evidence and allies, preparing for the final showdown. They knew that this confrontation could be dangerous, but they were determined to face Marcos and uncover the whole truth about Eduardo's life and death. As they prepared for the meeting, Laura reflected on everything she had learned. Despite the pain and betrayal, she felt a sense of clarity and purpose. She knew that she had to see this through to the end, for her own peace of mind and to honor the memory of the man she once loved. The confrontation with Marcos was intense and emotional. Laura and Gabriel presented their evidence, demanding answers. Marcos, cornered and desperate, finally revealed the full extent of his manipulation and control over Eduardo. He admitted to blackmailing Eduardo with threats against Laura and their family, forcing him to make the changes to his will and engage in fraudulent activities. With the truth finally revealed, Laura felt a mix of relief and sorrow. She now understood the immense pressure Eduardo had been under and the sacrifices he had made to protect her. Although the revelations were painful, they also brought a sense of closure. In the aftermath, Laura and Gabriel worked with their allies to expose Marcos and his organization, ensuring that justice was served. They also took steps to rectify Eduardo's will, honoring his true intentions and restoring Laura's rightful inheritance. Through this journey, Laura found strength and resilience she never knew she had. She learned to navigate the complexities of love, betrayal, and forgiveness, emerging stronger and more determined than ever. With Gabriel by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that the truth had finally been uncovered. After months of investigation, Laura and Gabriel finally uncovered the shocking truth behind Laura's exclusion from the will. The revelation came on a gloomy afternoon as they were in the lawyer's office, reviewing yet another set of documents. Gabriel, with a pale face, looked at Laura with eyes full of concern and surprise. "Laura," he began, his voice trembling, "I think we've found something important. Look at this." Laura took the document Gabriel handed her. It was an old, yellowed birth certificate. Her eyes widened as she read the father's name. Eduardo. The mother was a woman Laura had never heard of. But what shocked her the most was the name of the child, clearly written at the bottom of the document. "He had a son," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible. "A son he never told me about." Gabriel nodded, his expression somber. "It seems Eduardo did everything he could to hide this child's existence. Not only did he keep it from you, but he also manipulated the will to ensure everything went to his son after his death." Laura felt a wave of conflicting emotions. "But why? Why didn't he tell me? We could have resolved this together." "I don't know," replied Gabriel, shaking his head. "Maybe he was afraid of your reaction. Or maybe he wanted to protect him from something. But the fact is, he orchestrated all this so the illegitimate son would be the true beneficiary." They spent hours discussing the documents, trying to understand Eduardo's motivations. Each new page revealed more about the secret life he had led. There were letters, some never sent, where Eduardo expressed regret for his actions but also the need to protect his son at all costs. "Laura," Gabriel said softly, "these letters show he was desperate. He knew he was betraying you but felt he had no other choice." Laura squeezed her eyes shut, trying to hold back tears. "I loved Eduardo. I loved him with all my heart. And now I find out he lived a secret life, full of lies and deceit. It's like I never really knew him." Gabriel held her hand, offering support. "We'll get through this. Now that we know the truth, we can take the next steps. We need to find this son and understand what really happened." The search for Eduardo's illegitimate son led them to a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. When the door opened, a young man with a shy and confused look greeted them. His eyes, so similar to Eduardo's, revealed a mix of fear and curiosity. "Are you Laura?" the young man asked hesitantly. "Yes," Laura replied, trying to stay calm. "And you must be Eduardo's son." The young man nodded, letting them in. "My name is Lucas," he said as they sat in the small living room. "I didn't know my father was married. He always told me my mother and I were his only family." Laura and Gabriel exchanged significant looks. "Lucas," Gabriel began, "we need to understand what happened. Eduardo changed the will to ensure you were the beneficiary, but he did it secretly. Did you know anything about this?" Lucas shook his head. "I only knew he was worried. He said he needed to secure my future in case something happened to him. He never told me about you. I swear." Laura felt a mix of relief and sadness. "Lucas, let's figure this out together. We need all the pieces of the puzzle to understand why he did what he did." And so, with Lucas by their side, Laura and Gabriel continued to unravel the complex web of secrets Eduardo had left behind. Each step brought them closer to the truth, and each revealed truth provided a new perspective on the man Laura thought she knew. Armed with the truth, Laura confronted the legitimate heirs and the deceased's lawyers. In a room brimming with tension and raw emotion, she walked in with determined steps, her face set in resolve. Gabriel accompanied her, his silent presence offering support. The legitimate heirs and lawyers were gathered around a heavy wooden table, their gazes shifting to Laura as she entered. The atmosphere was thick with expectation and uncertainty. "Ladies and gentlemen," Laura began, her voice clear and strong, "I'm here to claim what is rightfully mine. Eduardo may have lived a double life, but that doesn't justify the injustice I've suffered. I want justice." One of the lawyers, a gray-haired man with a serious expression, adjusted his glasses and spoke first. "Ms. Laura, we understand your position, but the will was legally registered. What you're asking involves legal complications that cannot be ignored." Laura raised her chin, defiant. "Legal complications?" she retorted. "What Eduardo did was manipulate the system to hide an illegitimate child and deprive me of my inheritance. We've uncovered the truth, and we have enough evidence to contest this will." Gabriel, standing beside her, placed a stack of documents on the table. "Here is the evidence," he said, addressing the lawyers. "Birth certificates, financial records, unsent letters. Everything points to Eduardo manipulating the will. He acted under pressure and fear, and Laura deserves to be recognized as the rightful heir." The legitimate heirs, who had been silent until now, began murmuring among themselves. A young woman, clearly emotional, stood up. "Laura," she said, her voice trembling. "We didn't know any of this. We always believed Eduardo was an upright and honest man. If what you say is true, we need to resolve this correctly." "I'm not here to cause trouble," Laura replied, softening her tone slightly. "I just want the truth to be recognized and my position respected. Eduardo may have had his reasons, but that doesn't change the fact that I was wronged." One of the lawyers, after reviewing the documents, looked at his colleagues and nodded. "Ms. Laura has a valid point," he admitted reluctantly. "These pieces of evidence are substantial. We may need a judicial review of the will to ensure justice is served." The murmur in the room grew louder, emotions running high. Laura felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The battle was far from over, but at least, they were finally listening to her. "That's all I'm asking for," she said, her voice firm. "A fair and honest review. I want all the facts to be considered. And above all, I want Eduardo's memory to be treated with the respect he deserves, despite his flaws." The lawyers exchanged glances, aware of the seriousness of the situation. "We'll proceed with the review," one of them said finally. "But know that it will be a long and complex process. All sides will need to present their evidence and arguments." With the will annulled, Laura finally received the inheritance that had always rightfully belonged to her. The news came on a sunny morning when the lawyer called to inform her that the court had ruled in her favor. Sitting at the kitchen table, Laura dropped the phone from her hands as tears of relief streamed down her face. "We did it, Gabriel," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Gabriel, who was by her side, embraced her tightly, sharing in her joy. "I knew justice would prevail," he replied, his tone filled with pride and affection. "You deserve this, Laura. You deserve more than anything." The following days were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. The inheritance included the mansion where Laura and Eduardo had lived, as well as investments, bank accounts, and properties. The mansion, once a symbol of pain and betrayal, was now becoming a place of hope and new beginnings. Laura walked through the house's corridors, touching the old furniture and the pictures on the walls, feeling a renewed connection with her past. Each corner brought back memories, some painful, others sweet. Now, however, she could face these memories with a lighter heart. "We're going to transform this place," Laura told Gabriel as they stood in the living room. "I want this house to be a true home, filled with love and happiness. We're going to renovate every room, make this place something of ours." Gabriel smiled, holding her hand. "We'll do it together. This is just the beginning of a new life for us." They began planning the renovations, choosing new colors for the walls, modern furniture, and decor that reflected Laura's vibrant personality. Each decision was a reaffirmation of the new chapter they were writing together. Amidst the relief and redemption, Laura found peace beside Gabriel. He had been by her side through every difficult moment, offering unwavering support and constant love. More than any fortune, it was this partnership that truly brought meaning and value to her life. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden, Laura looked at Gabriel, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You've been my safe harbor, Gabriel. I don't know what I would have done without you." He squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "We're a team, Laura. We've been through so much together and come out stronger. What matters now is that we have each other." They embraced, feeling the gentle evening breeze around them. The peace Laura had long sought had finally settled in her heart. Now, with Gabriel by her side, she knew she could face whatever the future might bring. The final chapter marked the end of a tumultuous journey and the beginning of a new chapter in Laura and Gabriel's lives. The court's decision brought a mix of emotions. Laura felt a profound relief knowing that justice had finally been served, but also sadness over the revelations about Eduardo. Gabriel, always by her side, radiated a calm strength that supported her. On a sunny morning, Laura and Gabriel sat in the garden of the now renovated and vibrant mansion. The scent of freshly planted flowers mingled with the gentle breeze, creating an atmosphere of peace and renewal. Laura looked around, soaking in the tranquility that now pervaded the place. "It's incredible to think about everything we've been through to get here," Laura said, her voice soft but full of emotion. "It feels like a distant dream." Gabriel held her hand, his eyes reflecting the love and admiration he felt. "It was a tough journey, but we overcame it together. You were incredibly strong, Laura. I'm so proud of you." Laura smiled, finally feeling at peace. "I couldn't have done it without you, Gabriel. Your support meant everything to me. Even in the darkest moments, you were there, reminding me that there was hope." Gabriel squeezed her hand gently. "What matters now is that we can start anew. This house, our life, everything is beginning to fall into place. We have a bright future ahead." Laura looked up at the blue sky, feeling the sun's warmth on her face. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm really looking forward to the future. I want to cherish every moment, create new memories, and live life to the fullest. They stood up and walked hand in hand through the garden, each step symbolizing their new beginning. They passed by the newly renovated fountain, where the water's reflections danced under the sunlight. We have many plans, Gabriel said with a smile. Travel, projects, and maybe something more. Laura looked at him, curious. Something more? What do you have in mind? Gabriel stopped and turned to her, his eyes shining with deep emotion. I've been thinking, what if we started a family? This place would be perfect for raising children, full of love and stories. Laura's heart raced. A family? That would be wonderful, Gabriel. I've always dreamed of having children, but I never thought it would be possible after everything we've been through. With you, anything is possible, Gabriel replied, embracing her tenderly. Let's make this dream a reality. Laura was filled with a wave of joy and hope. As they looked toward the future, they knew that together, they could face any challenge. They had learned that even in the darkest situations, true love and determination could overcome all adversities. What matters is that we're together, Laura said with firm conviction. And that is stronger than any obstacle that may come our way. Gabriel nodded, holding her close. We'll always be together, Laura. And that's all we need to move forward. With a smile on their lips and hope in their hearts, Laura and Gabriel walked toward the future, ready to write the next chapter of their lives.